Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I hope you are doing well. In this tutorial I will show you how you can create a stylized sniper rifle in Blender. So let's get started.
First step is to set up the camera, select it and go to the camera properties and change the type to orthographic. Set the scale accordingly, I set mine to 10. I also like to enable the center composition guides in the viewport display. Next in the object properties, set the rotation. X to 55 degrees and Z to 45 degrees. Then go to the camera view and move it so that the cube is at its center. Now let's start modeling. Select the cube and tab into edit mode. Press S to scale, then Shift X to exclude the X-axis and scale it down to 0.5. Also scale it in Y-axis to 0.75. Then back into object mode and add a bevel modifier to it. Then duplicate it and move forward. Tab into edit mode and select these for edges and hit Ctrl B to bevel them. Then enable X-ray and select these faces. Duplicate them and separate them by pressing P. Go back to the object mode and select the new object created and tab into edit mode. Scale it down a little in the X-axis. Then press Alt-E to extrude along the normals. Next press Ctrl to add two loop cuts and bevel them. Also add a loop cut along the X-axis on both sides. Next select these faces and Alt-E to extrude along the normals. For the bevel modifier to work correctly under geometry, make sure to change the miter outer to arc. In the object mode, duplicate the cube and move it down. Tab into edit mode and move the bottom face up. Then add a loop cut and extrude the face down by pressing E, and move the vertices down. Also in the bevel modifier, change the miter outer to arc. In object mode again, duplicate the cube and move it backwards, then tab into edit mode to shape it. Scale it down on the Y-axis. Move the top face down and then move the vertices down. Shift D to duplicate this face and right-click, then extrude and scale up. Move the vertices a bit more down. Next, add a cylinder by Shift A and move it forward. Tab into Edit mode and scale it down, but not in the X-axis. In Object mode, move it up a little as well. Also add a bevel modifier to it as well. Select the front face and duplicate it, then scale it up and extrude it. Add another cylinder at front. Scale it down in the Edit mode and place in position. Select its front face and press I to inset it, then E to extrude. Add a bevel modifier to it as well. I also changed the camera scale to 12 to better fit the rifle and moved the objects in the frame. Next, duplicate the cube and move it down. In the Edit mode, rotate it 90 degrees in the Y-axis and scale it down a little on the Y-axis as well. Select the bottom face and move it up a bit. Then duplicate that face and scale it up and extrude down, move the vertices up a little. Then in Object mode, rotate it and place in position. Go back to Edit mode and select the front and back faces and press I to insert them. Scale the faces by pressing S and Z twice and then move down a little as well. Then Alt-E to extrude along the normals. Then duplicate the faces and separate them. In the object mode, select them and tab into edit mode and extrude them out. In the object mode, duplicate the cube again and move it up. In the edit mode, scale it down on the x-axis and move the top face down and scale it up in the x-axis. Also scale it down on the y-axis as well. Shift A and add a cylinder and move it in position, rotate it 90 degrees on the y-axis and in edit mode scale it down. Add a bevel modifier to it as well. Then duplicate the same cylinder and move it forward and in edit mode scale it up. Then move the front face back a little. Next, duplicate this cylinder to the other side and make it a bit more thinner. Duplicate the cylinder again and move it in the middle. Scale it down in the edit mode. Then duplicate it, move it up and scale up, but make it thinner. For the scope, select the cylinder at front and in edit mode select the front face, insert it and extrude inside. Then repeat the same for the cylinder in the back. Next, duplicate the cube and place in position. In edit mode, scale it down a bit in the y-axis. Then rotate it and place in position. Scale it down a little bit more in the y-axis. Then in edit mode select the front and back face and insert them, then duplicate and separate the faces. Select the object and tab into edit mode, then select the top two vertices and move them up by pressing G and X twice to move on the local axis and then extrude the faces. Next, add a circle with 8 vertices. Tab into edit mode and press F to fill the face and then extrude. Scale it down to make it smaller. Then place it in position. Add a bevel modifier to it and also a mirror modifier as well. In the mirror modifier, select the X and Y axis. Next, select the magazine and tab into edit mode, then select these for edges and press Ctrl B to bevel them. Do the same for these for edges as well. Then select the handle and go to edit mode and bevel these two edges. Repeat the same for the extruded faces as well. Next, select the stock and in edit mode duplicate and separate these faces. Select the new object and tab into edit mode. Then select the vertices and press G twice to slide them. Repeat this to create a thinner strip. Then add two loop cuts and rip them by pressing V. Then add a solidify modifier and make sure to move it above the bevel modifier. Next, in edit mode, select the faces one at a time to create some variations. Once done, select these edges and bevel them. Now do the same for the barrel. This time rotate and move the edges for some variations. Next, select the top cylinder of the scope and tab into Edit mode. Select the top face and press Shift-S to move the cursor to selected. Then duplicate the bolt, remove the mirror modifier and press Shift-S to move the selection to cursor. Then just rotate and move in position. Move the 3D cursor to the middle cylinder of the scope by Shift-S and then duplicate and move the bolt to the 3D cursor. Move it in position and add a mirror modifier to it. In the mirror modifier, select the Y and Z axis. Next, select the stock and in Edit mode bevel these edges by Ctrl-B. Then select the front cylinder of the scope and tab into Edit mode. Select the extruded face and duplicate it and separate it. Then in Object mode, first set its origin to geometry and then extrude it in Edit mode. Repeat the same for the back cylinder and the barrel. Duplicate and place a bolt here as well. Next, select the cloth at the barrel and set its origin to geometry, then move the 3D cursor to selection. Then add a plane by Shift A and press / to isolate it. Tab into edit mode and move it -1 meters in the Y-axis and scale down in the X-axis. Then add a couple of loop cuts. Select the first edge and enable proportional editing and then rotate. Use the scroll wheel to change the influence. Fine-tune by moving the vertices. Then add a solidify modifier and a subdivision surface modifier to it. Place it in position. It does not have to be perfect. Just place it however you like. Duplicate and rotate it. Also, if you scale any object in object mode, make sure to apply the scale by Ctrl A. Next, select the cylinder of the barrel and tab into edit mode. Then Ctrl A to add a loop cut. Then press V to rip it and then right-click. Then fill the empty faces by F. Next, select the scope and go to edit mode. Select the front vertices and press Shift + space and select shear. Then shear the vertices to about 0.25. Repeat the same for the other cylinder. Next, select all, make the cube the active object and press Ctrl P to parent them. Then you can batch rename the objects by Ctrl F2. Now you can move the sniper rifle by moving only the cube. Then select the cube and rotate and move it to fit the camera view. This step is totally up to you, make it look interesting. With that modeling is complete, I have added a palette that you can download from the link in the description. Then go to the render properties and switch the render engine to cycles and device to GPU. Then under color management change the view transform to filmic and look to medium high contrast. Then in the world properties, pick the blue color from the palette. Next select the light and in the data properties, change it to sun. Set the strength to 25 and angle to 90 degrees. Pick orange color from the palette. Then switch to rendered view. Select the light and press R twice to rotate it freely. Rotate it so that the light is coming from the top left. Next add an area light. Change the shape to disk and set the size to 5 meters, power to 10,000 and spread to 45 degrees. Then place the light directly behind the rifle. Next add a plane for the background. Rotate it so that it faces the camera. Lighting is done, and now let's start adding materials. Create a new workspace and switch it to Shader Editor. Select the cube and create a new material if it doesn't already have one. Shift-A to add an ambient occlusion node and connect it to base color, then add a color ramp node and place it in between. Change its interpolation to B-spline. Then simply pick the colors from the palette. Also decrease the roughness to 0.1. Next, add a hue, saturation, and value node. Increase the saturation and decrease the value. Next, select the object and duplicate the material. Just change the colors and increase the value as well. Next, simply add the materials to the objects. Select the barrel and add any material to it. Then duplicate the material and change the colors to create a black material. Then apply the material to the objects. Select the front cylinder and tab into edit mode, then hover over the front part and press L to select it. Then press P to separate it. Then add the light blue material to it. Similarly, create a red material for the cloth and bolts. Select the cylinder inside the scope and create a new material for it. Add an emission node and replace it with the principled BSDF. Pick an orange color and set the strength to 20. Add the same material to others. For the background, add a new material and add a blue color. Also set the roughness to 0 and metallic to 1. And now our model is complete. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it and found this helpful. Project files and real-time videos are available on my Patreon. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.